the first international conference on Buddhist ethics, education, and applied Buddhism, bring all scholars from all over the world in Indonesia to present their academic papers and thoughts. On behalf of the organizing committee and Sriwijaya State Buddhist College of Tangerang, Banten, would like to congratulate to all speakers and all panelists to join this event, and with warm regards, welcome you to Indonesia. Thank you.
Halo semuanya, Namo Buddhaya. Ada info menarik dan sangat bagus sekali kepada kamu semua yang ingin tahu seperti apa Sekolah Tinggi Agama Buddha Negeri Sriwijaya, Tangerang, Banten. Kita akan lihat dari jarak dekat, kita akan lihat sedalam-dalamnya dan sedetail-detailnya kampus apa sih ini dan apa yang bisa ditawarkan untuk kamu dan demi masa depan kamu. Yuk ikutin saya terus. Sahabat SW semuanya, Kampus Sekolah Tinggi Agama Buddha Negeri Sriwijaya Tangerang, Banten atau disingkat dengan SW ini didirikan pada tahun 2005 atas keputusan Presiden Republik Indonesia. Artinya ini adalah kampus negeri di bawah naungan Kementerian Agama dan tentunya memiliki nilai akreditasi dan bobot akademik yang luar biasa. Oleh karena itu, mari kita tengok ke dalam apa sebetulnya yang bisa ditawarkan oleh kampus ini dan apa fasilitas yang bisa diberikan kepada calon mahasiswa peserta didik baru pada tahun akademik 2020-2021. Stay tune ya. Sriwijaya tidak hanya memberikan bekal keilmuan dan potensi akademik yang tinggi, namun juga peningkatan dan juga pengembangan potensi spiritual. Oleh karena itu, fasilitas Dharma Sala atau lebih dikenal dengan Lab Pengembangan Dharma adalah tempat di mana mahasiswa menempa kemampuan spiritualnya, mengakuisisi hal-hal yang baik dan juga memanfaatkan tempat ini sebagai tempat berlatih. Dan jadi Staben Sriwijaya adalah tempat yang paling tepat untuk mengembangkan kemampuan akademik dan juga kemampuan spiritualitas yang juga nanti akan termaktub di dalam kemampuan emosional kita. Ada kesempatan yang sangat bagus tentunya bagi kamu semua yang saat ini belum menemukan tempat perkuliahan atau bercita-cita setinggi langit namun belum menemukan tempat menentukan pilihan di mana nanti akan melanjutkan studi S1-nya. Nah, oleh karena itu, Sekolah Tinggi Agama Buddha Negeri Sriwijaya Tangerang, Banten atau SW membuka pendaftaran baru gelombang kedua pada tahun 2020 ini. Yang sebelumnya gelombang 1 sudah terjaring puluhan mahasiswa dari seluruh Indonesia di negeri ini. Nah, proses pendaftarannya sangat sederhana. atau secara daring. So you don't need to go from your home, just stay at home and go enrollment. Informasi tentang PMB ini dapat diakses melalui website resmi kampus kami di www.staben/sriwijaya.ac.id atau pada nomor yang tertera. Silakan googling dan browsing kontak personnya dan daftar langsung sekarang juga, karena tentunya pendaftaran ini tidak membutuhkan uang yang banyak. Hanya dengan modal pendaftaran Rp100.000 Anda bisa mengikuti tes pada gelombang kedua ini dan menjadi bagian dari Sekolah Tinggi Agama Buddha Negeri Sriwijaya Tangerang, Banten. So, check it out. Save your seat.
Good afternoon, Brother Casey Liu from Malaysia, the coordinator of Vajrayana Buddhism in Malaysia, the one who connected us with Venerable Sonam Wangmo. Could you please say something to the group before we proceed to the main event?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brother Eddie, and give us the opportunity to share with our Venerable, especially on the Dharma, for the Indonesia brother sister. And also we would like to take this opportunity to share, in particular, Tibetan Buddhist, Tibetan Mahayana insight, to share again to all the participants in your site, Indonesia. And also good to connect with your college. And this is the first time for us to connect with the Buddhist college. So I've seen your video just now, very impressed. And hopefully after COVID, we are able to visit your college very soon. Thank you. Sadhu. Tashi Dalek.
Tashi Dalek. Thank you, Brother Casey, for giving us introduction. We will proceed exactly at 2 p.m. sharp Indonesia's time. And now we are proceed to the pre-events show. Thank you very much.
Brother Eddie, Venerable is already online.
Well, she can enter into the Zoom because we still have another good videos to be viewed.
Okay.
Yeah, even
so
though
I thought she's at the breakout room. No, it's not a breakout room, right?
No, it's one platform only because it live stream.
Good. Yeah. Okay, thank you. You go ahead. I pass it back.
Okay, please ask Venerable to join. Pak Waluyo dan teman-teman, Venerable Sonam akan masuk untuk mengikuti pra-acara selanjutnya. Terima kasih.
Baik, sir.
Brother Casey, can you acknowledge? Venerable Sonam, is Venerable already here?
Venerable, I think I actually asked her to log in.
Yes.
She log in?
Yeah, I'm trying to calling her right now.
Okay, let me text her also because I remind her just now. Yeah.
Okay. Does she prepare
yeah, I also
PowerPoint slides?
check with her whether there's PowerPoint. If there is, copy to you, right?
Okay, sure. And my staff will do the share screen later on.
Sure.
Audioable, Venerable? Brother Peck, Brother Casey, is Venerable already here in the Zoom?
I think she's texted me. She's trying to log in. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, we'll be waiting. Yep. Okay, I think she made it.
It's
Pak Waluyo, Pak Marjo, because Venerable Sonam Wangmo has just arrived. Can you please repeat to present our profile video? Just the profile video, please, Pak Waluyo or Pak Marjo. Time is yours.
Good afternoon, Brother Edi.
Yes, finally, I can hear your voice very clearly, Most Venerable.
Okay, that's wonderful to hear.
Yes.
I hope later on I can share the screen, yeah, to share the PowerPoint.
Will you do it by yourself or you will have us to share for you? What do you think?
I think I can do it because it doesn't really just goes with the talk that I'm giving and all. I mean, so I mean it doesn't like really relates with it. So I'll just go through. Yeah, it's okay.
Right then. So you still need us to display it for you, or you will do it by yourself?
Selamat siang, Venerable.
If it is okay, I think if I can do also is okay, because if you do, then am I able to change to the next slide and all, or somebody has to do? But if I share, then I think I can do it, isn't it?
All right. So you will be assigned as a co-host, then you can do a share screen by yourself. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Pak Waluyo, have you been assigning co-host to Most Venerable?
Yeah.
Okay, you are co-host now, Venerable.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So thank you very much, Venerable, brothers and sisters. I would like to, first of all, deliver my heartfelt gratitude for her willingness to talk and giving us insight today to Most Venerable Dr. Tenzin Sonam Wangmo. We are so delighted here to have you as one of our guest speaker in our SACC program hosted by Sriwijaya State Buddhist College of Tangerang, Banten, Indonesia. First of all, I would like to read Most Venerable's curriculum vitae. So Venerable Dr. Tenzin Dadon, or we can call her honorific term for the nun, Sonam Wangmo, was born in Saigang, Bhutan on December 1977. Venerable became a nun in 1993 at the age of 16 at Dharmasala, India, after completing high school in Bhutan. She later received her Sramanerika, or in Tibetan tradition is Getsulma, ordination directly from His Holiness Dalai Lama 14, Tenzin Gyatso in 1999. Suma Tenzin left her home country to pursue a systematic monastic education, which was to a large extent still not available to nuns in Bhutan. Suma spent 13 years at Jamyang Kuling Institute for Buddhist Dialectics, a non-sectarian nunnery institute in Garoh, Lower Dharmasala, Himachal Pradesh, North India. She studies Buddhist philosophy, Tibetan language, and literature. Venerable Suma Dadon also learned, various topics in Dharma, such as collective topics or deudra, awareness and knowledge lorik, science and reasoning or tagrik, philosophical tenets or drupta, the prajna paramita or prachin, and the middle part, or as we know largely as Madhyamika or Uma, and the commentary on valid cognition of Pramana or Setma. Venerable also holds a Master of Arts, so he also have master degrees in Buddhist studies from Delhi University, India in 2009, which specialized in Tibetan Buddhism from International Buddhist College or IBC. Venerable Tenzin Dadon completed her Doctor of Philosophy in Gender and Religion in the University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, 2017, focusing on anthropological thesis on nuns in Bhutan with the aim of improving the status of living condition of nuns in her active country, Bhutan. So it is very interesting, yeah, her background in academic. She also learned Buddhist studies, while at the secular knowledge, Most Venerable also learned anthropological studies. And last but not least is that Venerable right now has conducted a lot of meditation trainings in Malaysia, in Switzerland, in Germany, in some other parts of in the Europe. Venerable Tsunma has also taught the diploma courses in Buddhist studies of the Buddhist and Pali University or BAPU under Buddhist Missionary Society of Malaysia. Venerable also conducts Tibetan languages courses in Malaysia for laity people like us, yeah, most of us. And Venerable Tsunma considers herself as non-sectarian, yeah, even though her robe practices in Vajrayana Buddhism and in the school of Tibetan Vajrayana, but also takes teaching from Theravada and Mahayana Buddhist masters, most notably Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh in French, in the Plum Village for Zen tradition. So, without any further ado, today Venerable Dr. Tenzin Sonam Wangmo will talk about mindfulness and Buddhist tradition, its prospects and challenge for today's education. As we know that this is very interesting topic and very currently debated in scholarly thoughts. And today we would like to hear a lot from Venerable, which will be followed by question and answer from participants, and then summing up the materials. So, Most Venerable Sonam Wangmo, time is yours.
Thank you, brother. Just let me share the screen before I start. Yeah. So, very good afternoon to everyone, especially to the organizers of Sriwijaya State Buddhist College of Indonesia and Dr. Lee, Edi, and also Brother Casey of Tibetan Buddhist Center in Singapore, who has also been coordinating with Brother Edi to liaise with him and also to organize together. So thank you very much, and thank you especially to the Sriwijaya State Buddhist College for giving me a platform to share on the mindfulness in Buddhist tradition, and especially in the Tibetan Buddhism. So thank you so much. And with that, I would like to say good afternoon to all of you, and also to all the participants as well. I thank you for your support in coming and participating in this sharing. So before I begin the actual sharing, I will do a short prayer, which actually is taking a refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha in the Tibetan language and generating the Bodhicitta. And then I will do a short the prayer on the emptiness, which is the very, very condensed recitation of the Heart Sutra, which is only 4 lines. So, okay. Please allow me, yeah? Sangye chuda tsuke chonam la jancho badu dane chapsuj. Dagi jinsu gebe sunam ge dola penje sangye du barashu. Sange chuda tsoke chunam la jancho badu dane chapsuj. Dagi jinso gebe sunam ge drola pinche sange tu parashu. Sange chuda tsoke chunam la jancho badu dane chapsuj. Dagi jinso gebe sunam ge drola pinche sange tu parashu. Simchen tamche dewa da dewe juda dembra juje simchen tamche dungel da dunge ge juda dewara juje simchen tamche dunge mepe dewa da me dewara juje simchen tamche nyere chada nida da danyum la ne para juje masam jime shira pare she make miga nampe ngui so so rari she je Disum give yumla chatselu. Thank you so much. So, okay, today the talk will be on the mindfulness in Buddhist tradition and especially focusing on the Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism. So before I start with the mindfulness directly, so I would like to say a few words on what is Buddhism. Because as it is a talk on the Buddhism, I would like to, I'm sure all of you, or maybe most of you are from the Buddhist background and you're very familiar with it. But I would just like to give an introduction to what is Buddhism and then maybe the different schools of Tibetan Buddhism before I go to the proper talk, which is on the mindfulness. So, so what is Buddhism? Buddha Dharma or Buddhism refers to the teachings of the awakened one, or Buddha, the title given to Siddhartha Gautama after he attained his enlightenment more than 2,600 years ago. The goal of Buddhism is to be awakened from the sleep of ignorance by directly realizing the true nature of reality. The teaching of the Buddha is actually summarized in the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Paths that describe the nature of human suffering. And also the Noble Eightfold Path is a way to bring oneself out from the existential pain of the life and for us to reach the final goal, which is the nirvana or the full enlightenment, or it is called as a Buddhahood as well. So Buddhism spreads from India through Asia and eventually to the rest of the world. After passing away of the Buddha, at least 18 schools of Buddhism helped shape Buddhism, the three major schools of Buddhism that exist today, and then which we all know that it is the Theravada, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana schools that exist now out of the 18 schools. The presence of these various schools within Buddhism, although it did ruffle a few feathers within the orthodoxy, is largely accepted as being valid schools of Buddhists. Buddhists taught that one can come to understand the truth of existence by living an ethical life dedicated to spiritual development. So now comes the schools of the Buddhism. Yes, there are the variations of Buddhism. As I said, there were 18, but which now popularly known as 3. Actually, it is 2, the Hinayana or the Theravada and the Mahayana. And the third one is considered as the Vajrayana, which actually is a part of Mahayana. So what is Theravada? The Theravada, or the Way of the Elders, is also known as the Southern School of Buddhism, and its origins in northern India. It is considered to be the oldest form of Buddhism and the closest to the teachings of early Buddhism. Theravada Buddhism is traditionally practiced in Southeast Asia, especially in Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia, And actually, it is also practiced now in Europe, the Americas, and beyond. And this Theravada is rooted in the Tripitaka, or in Sanskrit, it's called Tripitaka, which is the three baskets or the three collections of the text. So collected in this text of the Tripitakas are the earliest known Buddhist text, the sutras, which is the accounts of hundreds of oral teachings given by the Buddha and his senior disciples, the Vinaya, which is the rules of the monastic order, and the Abhidharma, later scholarly commentaries on the teachings. So together they form a Pali canon, a collection of foundational texts that comprise the doctrinal basis of Theravada. So Theravada rests on a core Buddhist teachings, including the Noble Four Truth, and the Eightfold Path to Enlightenment, the Three Jewels, or the Triple Gem, or the Tiratana, which is known as Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and also on the concept such as impermanence, non-self, karma, rebirth, and dependent origination, along with ethical precepts and the meditational practice of shamatha and vipassana. Although the Buddha set out ethical guidelines for the lay practitioners, Theravada is essentially a monastic tradition, emphasizing vows of renunciation and self-purification. So for the Theravadins, the spiritual idol is Arahant. Arahant, Sanskrit, it's called Arahat, or the accomplished one who through solitary effort attains nirvana, which is the liberation from the suffering of cyclic existence, which is the cycle of rebirth, old age, death, and sickness, which marks the samsara or the worldly life. So in classical Theravada, a layperson could only attain up to the label of stream enterer, the first of four labels of attainment on the path to enlightenment. But the discipline of a monastic was deemed essential to reach the highest label, which is a non-returner like the Buddha, whose final nirvana experience at his death, which is freed from the rebirth. So, okay, next is like, what is the second Buddhism that we have distinguished as the schools of Buddhism, that is Mahayana. So Mahayana Buddhism, or as literally translated as a great vehicle, Maha, great, and Yana, the vehicle, which is also called so-called the Northern School of Buddhism, is different from the more orthodox Theravada, as the Mahayana introduced an entire pantheon of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas into Buddhism, which makes its outward practice distinctly different from Theravada Buddhism. Though its origins are not precisely known, scholars believed it emerged in the 1st century CE and existed side by side with the Theravada for some time before becoming a separate tradition. Mahayanists view their teachings as the second turning of the wheel. Remembering the first turning of the wheel refers to the Buddha's initial teachings after his enlightenment, when he introduced the Four Noble Truths. Mahayana Buddhism shares in the core teachings of the Buddha with Theravada in terms of the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, dependent origination, karma, cause and effect, but it follows the Sanskrit scriptures composed as much as 400 years after the Buddha's death that are held to represent the words of the Buddha. While individual awakening is the goal for most Theravadins, attained in gradual stages and only after lifetimes in practices, the Mahayana tradition teaches that all beings inherently possesses Buddha nature within themselves, the seed of awakening, thus perfecting the quality of the Buddha. And the Buddha to be can be removed the hindrances to realization even within the single lifetime. So that means we don't have to wait for many lifetimes to get enlightened. So it is possible within one lifetime, as we have a Buddha nature within oneself. So the Mahayana spiritual mode is Bodhisattva, as like in Theravada, it is the Arahantship. So in Mahayana, it is the Bodhisattva who's motivated by the Bodhicitta, the desire to awaken, to help all sentient beings realize their true nature. Like the Theravada, the Mahayana school teaches practitioners to cultivate in the paramitas as well, like such as generosity, morality, patience, and so forth. So particularly associated with the Mahayana is the Prajnaparamita Sutra, the main text of Madhyamika, or the middle way schools, the understanding that all beings and phenomena are empty of inherent existence and arises on interdependently. So the related doctrine of the two truths that holds the everyday dualistic world of appearances, which is relative or conventional reality, and the emptiness, which is absolute or ultimate reality, are not separate. It is considered as one. So in Mahayana, the Yogacara school, or the mind-only school, asserts that reality in any form is a mental construct. Continuity of the phenomenal world is ascribed as a storehouse consciousness. As Theravada has moved south of the Ganges Valley, the Mahayana tradition spread north and east, roughly following the trading routes of the Silk Route. So therefore, from China, the Chan Buddhism migrated to Korea as Sion, or Son, it is pronounced, to Vietnam as Tien, and to Japan as Zen, as a Zen Buddhism. The other Mahayana schools developed in Japan as well, including the Pure Land schools, and those based on the teachings of the Nichiren, a Japanese priest. Vajrayana, a form of Mahayana that draws upon an esoteric Indian text called Tantras, settled in Tibet and Himalayan region, and to some extent in Japan, in the Shingon and Tendai traditions. So now, when we talk of the Vajrayana that is settled in Tibet and in the Himalayan region, so what is Vajrayana Buddhism again? So the third and newest school of Buddhism, which prevails today, is Vajrayana Buddhism, also known as the Diamond Vehicle, or the Mantrayana, or the Tantrayana, or the Secret Yana. So it is called by all these different names. It is commonly known in the world now as Tibetan Buddhism, though it is also found in Japan in the Shingon and Tendai traditions. This branch of Buddhism is essentially a Mahayana Buddhism, meaning it is a part of a Mahayana, but it has an added component of a Tantra. Both Theravada and Mahayana contain only sutra teachings, whereas Mahayana contains both sutra and the tantric practice. So therefore, it is a little bit different to the Mahayana because of the component of tantric practice. Vajrayana Buddhism originated in North India around the 5th century CE, and then came to India about in the 7th century, and then from Tibet, it spread across the Himalayan region. Vajrayana takes its name as a Vajra, which in Sanskrit means diamond or thunderbolt, that is suggesting the power of its method. It is practiced in Bhutan, Tibet, Mongolia, and even some parts of Buryatia and Nepal. It is also practiced in Ladakh, Spiti, Lahore, Sanskar, Sikkim, and Arunachal Pradesh, which is all in India, and is prevalent in Japan in the form of a Shingon and Tendai traditions. However, Bhutan is the only Vajrayana country left in the world. So Bhutan is the country that I come from. So that is the only country that is left as a Vajrayana country now in the world. So although Vajrayana shares the same view that we are perfected and can awaken in a single lifetime, as we discussed in the Mahayana school, Vajrayana considered itself as the fastest way to the enlightenment. So we give an example, like if we take a means of transportations, then it's like in Theravada, we are taking a bus. We will reach the destinations, but it is a bit slow, but it is more safer. And in terms of the Mahayana, we take the example of taking the means of transportation as a train, which is a little bit faster than the Theravada. And in terms of the Vajrayana, it's like taking a plane, which actually reaches very fast, but in terms of the life and all, also there's more danger. If anything happens on the way, there's no chance of survival. So in that way, in the practice of the tantric and also all this, also we have those things that we have to really follow properly, and all this. Otherwise, you will drop down again, like the plane and all. So the Vajrayana's canon exists of the text known as the Kanjur, which is the sutras and tantras considered to be the words of the Buddha, and Tenjur, which is the commentaries. So Vajrayana, like Mahayana, makes no distinctions between the samsara and nirvana, meaning the passions and aversions alike are embraced as a skillful means to awakening. Though Vajrayana upholds the Mahayana Bodhisattva ideal, its pantheon of celestial beings is more extensive, including a protector deities and dakinis, which they do not have in the Mahayana. So the deity yuga is very essential, whereby a student takes on the identity of a chosen deities who represent enlightened quality is a central practice, and it has to be guided by the guru or lama, the master who initiates the students into esoteric practices. So the ritual is very, very important. Ritual is the key in the Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism, including the repetitions of the mantra, chanting of the prayers, visualization of the mandalas and the deities, and the sacred hand gestures, and then doing the prostrations and circumambulations, and all these are very considered as very important. Mantras are essential in Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism. The mantras are usually short invocations to particular manifestations of Buddha and serve as a skillful means to alter one's mind to make a connection with the particular Buddha that they are practicing, who in essence is actually no different from us, as we are of the nature of emptiness. So which means we and the deities of the Buddha that we are visualizing is one and the same. So because since we also have the Buddha nature within ourselves. So in Tibetan Buddhism, ngondro, or the preliminaries, are the prerequisite for higher tantric practices. So before we go to the higher tantra practice, we have to have the understanding in the ngondro, which is the preliminary practice. The highest practice involves the symbolic of the union of the feminine, which is the symbolize of wisdom, and the masculine, which is the compassion principle. So tantric practice are largely kept secret to preserve the sanctity of teachings and protect practitioners from energies they have not yet trained, because they have to get training from the proper gurus. So the schools of so in the Tibetan Buddhism, we also have different schools. Like the Buddhism have 3 schools, which we have just discussed. Even within the Tibetan Buddhism, we have different schools. We have, but among the many schools, there are 4 major schools. The Tibetan Buddhism's 4 main schools are the Nyingma, which is the oldest, and whose founder is held to be the 8th century Indian master, Guru Padmasambhava, also known as the Guru Rinpoche. He is known as a Guru Rinpoche by the people of the Buddhist, Vajrayana Buddhists in the Himalayan region. But he is an Indian scholar that came from India and brought Buddhism, the Tantric Buddhism, to Tibet and then spread to other parts of the world. So this Guru Rinpoche, or the Guru Padmasambhava, is revered as the second Buddha. And he is said to have hidden treasure text, which is called as Therma, and it is to be discovered later both physically and the mind stream of the Terton, which is a treasure revealer. And then the second is the Sakya school. The Sakya school is headed by the Sakya Trizin. The Sakya Trizin literally means a hereditary title, is closely associated with the He Vajra Tantra, a text on non-dualism symbolized by the sacred union of the deity He Vajra and his consort. And then the third is the Kaju school. It traces its origins and practice to the Indian yogi, the Tilopa, the master Naropa, the translator Marpa, and his disciple Milarepa, a very famous Tibet's poet saint. The Kaju school is the one that introduced the Tulku system, which is almost 900 over years ago. The practice of recognizing the reincarnation of great masters, thus continuing their lineage. So in Bhutan, as I said, it's a state, the only Vajrayana country in the world. That Vajrayana country in the world, the only Vajrayana country in the world, Bhutan, practices the third schools, which is the Kaju school. So to the Dukpa Kaju, one of the schools of the Kaju is the state religion of Bhutan. As I said, in these four major schools, also we have minor schools. So one of the minor school is the state or religion of Bhutan. So okay, the next is Geluk, the fourth one, and it is the newest in the major Vajrayana schools, and it is a monastic sect incorporating elements of earlier schools. Its most notable leader is His Holiness the Dalai Lama, as everybody in the world knows. So all these four major schools have the minor branches of its own. So especially in Kaju, we have 4 major and 8 minor. And among that 4 major and 8 minor, also we have small subsects. So they have own minor branches of their own. So now we talk about mind in Buddhism. So Buddhism sometimes is referred to as the science of mind, which has some of the most profound and detailed teachings on the nature and working of the human mind. The term mind, which in Pali it's called chitta, and the consciousness are often used interchangeably to refer to the faculty of discernment in every living being. The several philosophical schools developed in Buddhism in order to explain the workings of the mind, and this has also been the subject of disagreement between the different schools of Buddhism. So Buddhism has as their foundation the doctrines from early Buddhism as contained in the Pali Canon as the reference point of the basic definitions of the mind. So in the nature of the mind in Anguttara Nikaya is described as no other single thing changes so quickly as the mind. And also in the Anguttara Nikaya, which is under the Ekaka Nipata Pali, it is said that the mind is intrinsically pure and bright. It is defiled by greed, hatred, and ignorance. The basic quality of mind is actually pure awareness. That is, mind is defined as that which knows. It has the quality of knowing and awareness according to the Tibetan Buddhism. So the Karma Chakme provides a comprehensive description of the mind from the Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhist perspectives. He says, Mind has no form, color, or concrete substance. It is not to be found anywhere outside or within your body, nor in between. It is not found to be a concrete thing. Even if you were to search throughout the 10 directions, it does not arise from anywhere, nor does it abide and disappear at any place. Yet, it is not non-existent since your mind is vividly awake. And it is also said that mind is not a singularity because it manifests in manifolds. And nor is it a plurality because all these are one essence. There's no one which can describe its nature. But when expressing its resemblance, there is no end to what can be said. It is the very basis of all the samsara and nirvana. So now, the Buddha have expounded the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, dependent origination, karma, cause and effect, and all many during his teachings. And often he expounded the Noble Eightfold Path to liberation as a gradual training, which is divided into the threefold training of morality, concentration, and wisdom. So among the 8 Noble Path, or a Noble Eightfold Path, right speech, right action, and right livelihood makes up the aggregate of virtue or moral discipline, which is sila, and right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration make up the aggregates of concentration. Right view and right intention make up the aggregate of understanding of wisdom. So the ethical discipline or the morality in Buddhism involves 3 labels, which is the bodily action, the speech, and the thought. And in the Dharmapada, the Buddha taught that the mind is a forerunner and all actions and speech stem from the mind. So all the thoughts and the speech, all it comes from the mind, as mind is the forerunner. So hence, restraint at the mental level is considered the first step in practicing ethical discipline. So since the mind dictates the action and the speech, training in ethical discipline in Buddhism involves mind training. So mind training that is designed to tackle the 3 labels of the mind. So the mind is divided into 3 different categories. So the 3 labels of mind are the most subtle mind or the tendency, which is the immorality or the morality that operates within ourselves in the innermost label of our mind. And the subtle label that refers to the stored tendencies which are at the bottom of the mind, but when caught off guard, sometimes come to the surface of the mind. And the gross label, the mind of the gross label, which is the immoral or moral acts that manifest through thoughts, speech, and bodily actions, which spring up at the slightest provocations or stimulations. So the idea is to begin training at the gross level of the mind in order to firmly establish discipline outwardly, which in time habituates and permeates into the subtle mind of label of mind and is eventually firmly rooted in the most subtle mind. So step by step, we have to first begin training in the gross level, and then you climb up, like how you climb up the staircases to go to the 2nd floor or the 3rd floor. So without the ethical discipline, one is unable to progress on the path of liberation because one's mind lacks the discipline to practice the path. So the purification of non-virtues constitute the first training, which is the ethical discipline, which can only be successfully accomplished through a careful introspection process, for which right mindfulness, the 7th factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, is essential. So when right effort is combined with the right mindfulness, it results in the right concentration, which is a single pointedness concentration, or one pointedness of the mind. So therefore, the right concentration is the first of the two methods of meditation taught by the Buddha. So among the two methods of meditation taught by the Buddha, one is the development of serenity, tranquility, or calm abiding. That is the development of the concentration. And the other is the development of insight, which aims at understanding or wisdom. So before a practitioner can fully develop single-pointed concentration, he or she has to first and foremost train in the deep awareness of mindfulness with regards to all aspects of cognizance. So now, what is mindfulness? Yeah. So when we talk about the mindfulness, we always ask about this question, yeah? What is mindfulness? What is not mindfulness? Because everybody is talking. It is probably because you see the term mindfulness everywhere, and because it is so frequently also associated with the Buddhism and the meditation. And right mindfulness in Pali is called a samasati, refers to the constant awareness with regards to the body, with the feelings, with thoughts and mind objects. In its simplest form, mindfulness is about being aware of our every thought, speech, movement, and activity. So right mindfulness is the pioneer to right concentration. So without the right mindfulness, you will not be able to reach the right concentration, which is the one-pointedness concentration. So because without first developing mindfulness, one would not be able to dwell in the present moment, which is the essential for being the one-pointedness, which develops the one-pointedness of the mind. So training in right mindfulness, we will purify our bodily actions, our verbal actions, and the mental actions by repeatedly reflecting upon them. So the English word mindfulness is often used to translate a Pali term found in the early Buddhist text, which is asati. Yeah? So in fact, the Buddha gave a set of instructions of meditation that became known as the Satipatthana Sutta, or the discourse of the establishment of mindfulness. And right mindfulness is one of the steps of the Noble Eightfold Path as well, the path of practice taught by the Buddha that would eventually lead us to the awakening. So the Buddha's definition of sati means keeping something in mind, that is constantly remembering the object that you are aiming to keep your attention on. So when the Buddhist teachers talk about the mindfulness of the breath in terms of the meditation, for example, they are talking about remembering the breath, maintaining your awareness of the breath, and recollecting the breath in case your mind wanders to another object or for other thoughts. After the other thoughts, it's just to recollect back the breath, remember the breath, maintain in that state. So that is the mindfulness. So ultimately, it is the way of training the mind that is integral to all other elements of Buddhist practice. Sorry, excuse me. So mindfulness is involved in living ethically, for instance, by following what are known as the precepts. Yeah, we take the precept for the lay people, we take 5 precepts, and for the Sangha, we have different labels of precepts, like the Samanera. Then if it is a nun before the bhikkhuni, then they have to also take the shikshamana, then the bhikkhuni. And in terms of the monks, it is after the Samanera, they take the bhikshu ordination, so they have a different stage. So by following what are known as the precept, in this case, it means remembering recollecting and maintaining that you are not going to kill anything, and you're not going to lie, you're not going to steal, and so forth. So being aware. So when you take the precept, it is also for you to remember, for to recollect or to maintain in that state that you are not supposed to be killing anything, anybody, and not stealing, and likewise. So sticking with that behavior requires remembering what you want to live and being aware of the choices you make and what the consequences are likely to be. So Shanti Deva, in engaging the conduct of bodhisattvas, provided a summary to the importance of mindfulness as the foundation of the Buddhist practice. So the Shanti Deva quotes in engaging of the conduct of bodhisattva that those who practice should be as attentive as a frightened man carrying a jar full of mustard oil, who is being threatened by someone with a sword, that he will be killed if he spills just one drop. So that is how mindfulness we have to be. We have to make sure that it doesn't drop, even a single drop is spilled out. So in the same field, Gampopa in Sutra requested with the extreme serenity explained that mindfulness is the antidote to agitated states of mind that hinder the practice of concentration and the wisdom. So the right mindfulness refers to the constant awareness, which is also known as the 4 applications or the 4 foundations of the mindfulness. So the 4 foundations of the mindfulness are towards the body, feeling, mind, and phenomena or dharma. So the 4 foundations of mindfulness, towards the body, we take it as impure, feelings as suffering, the mind as impermanent, and the phenomena or the dharma as without self. So for the concentration, we have to have the right mindfulness in the beginning. So the concentration also is very, very important, both in Dharma practice and also in the ordinary life. The Tibetan word for the practice of concentration is called shine. Shine is of 2 words, shine. Shi means peace and ne means dwell. So shine means it's dwelling in the peace. So if we do not, so if we are not careful to watch the mind, it may seem that it is peaceful. When we just glance at the mind, we may feel that it is peaceful. However, when we really look inside, we see that it is not so. Because mind does not rest on the same object, even for a single second. It flutters around like a banner flapping in the wind. No sooner does the mind settles on one object, then it is carried away by another. Even if we live in the cave, in the high mountains, as practitioners, I think it is same. We cannot control the mind, just goes as long as you're not mindful. If you're mindful and then if you have developed the concentration, then I think it's a different story. But otherwise, it just goes from one to another. Even if you're sitting in the cave, in the mountains also, still it is the same. So just as a man carrying a bowl full of water down a rough road has to keep one part of his mind on the water and another part on the road, which in the Shine practice one has mentioned, one part of the mind must apply mindfulness to maintain steady concentration, and another part must use attentive applications to guard against the disturbances. Most people take the image of the Buddha form, their object of concentration, to develop Shine. And then some also take the breath, the breathing in, that you're aware you're breathing in, and breathing out, you're aware that you're breathing out, which is as the object of concentration. But as per the Tibetan Vajrayana tradition, this section explores on what is called the preliminary. And from the preliminary practice, which is also called the Ngondro, they specially explore on the outer preliminary practice, which has the fourfold teachings called the 4 thoughts that turn the mind away from samsara. So which is designed to develop a deep sense of renunciation in the spiritual practice as a mindfulness tool. So what are the 4 thoughts that turn the mind away from samsara? The 4 thoughts that turn the mind away from samsara are the precious human rebirth, death and impermanence, karma, cause and effect, and the defects of samsara. So one of the most powerful preliminary teachings in the Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhist tradition is that on the precious human rebirth. As only human being can practice the Dharma and actualize enlightenment, a capacity not possessed by beings of the remaining 5 realms of existence. So non-humans are unable to become enlightened is because their mind streams are improper vessel. Therefore, they have no opportunity to practice. So we can see in the animal realm very clearly, even though we cannot see in the deva and the demigods and other realms, but in the animals, they are constantly fighting for the food and to save themselves from their enemies. And also they don't have, and then they don't have also the mind stream also to receive the Dharma. So precious human being is the only proper vessel where you can receive the Dharma. So when you are mindful of when you practice on the mindfulness of the precious human rebirth, Gampopa cites in the Acharya Chanda Gomis as saying that how great are its beneficial effects. By obtaining this precious life, one can become free from the ocean of rebirth and also sow the seeds of supreme enlightenment. This very human life has greater qualities than the wish-fulfilling jewel. So how could one not gain its fruit? The path through which humans can gain great strength of mind cannot be obtained by the gods, nagas, demigods, garudas, and so forth. So in a similar...
Sorry, Venerable. I would
Yes?
like to remind you that we still have 10 minutes time remaining. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So Shanti Deva also in his engaging in the conduct of Bodhisattva says that it's very hard to obtain the precious human rebirth. Like it is given the example of the turtle that lives under the oceans. And there's a turtle which is blind that lives under the ocean, and it comes on the surface of the ocean once in 100 years. So, and then there is a yolk that is floating on the surface of the ocean, where sometimes when the turtle comes up, the blind turtle comes up in 100 years, it's like inserts its head in the yolk. So the precious human rebirth, to get reborn in the precious human rebirth is even more difficult and more rare and more hard than that. This is the example it is given. And moreover, the human lifespan is short. And then in terms of the number of, so you can see that the animals are much, much higher in the numbers. We can't even count. Whereas in terms of the population of the human, we can say that it's very huge, but still we can count the number of the human populations. So Shanti Deva also in his engaging in the conduct of Bodhisattva constantly reminds that relying upon the boat of the human body, free yourself from the great river of pain, as it is hard to find this boat again. This is no time for you to sleep, he says. So therefore, a human body is the perfect vessel to embody the teachings and engage in mind training. So in terms of the death and impermanence also, we are reminded, constantly we are reminded that the death is inevitable. And Gampopa also prescribed, saying that the meditative practice on death and impermanence are based on the 3 facts. That is, one will definitely die, the time of death is uncertain, and there will be no help when death really occurs to you. And Gompopa added that there are also 3 reasons for the certainty of the death. It's because there's no one from the past who is alive. The body is composite and life is becoming exhausted every moment. So the death is definitely going to occur to every one of us. So even when we reflect back, it also says that like the holy beings like Buddha and those in the positions of power such as king and presidents and prime ministers are subject to impermanence. What then can be said about the ordinary people like us? So the Paltu Rinpoche also said there's absolutely nothing in the universe, animate or inanimate, that has any stability or permanence. So, and then when we are constantly reminded of the mindfulness in terms of the karma, cause and effect, the karma actually literally means the actions in Sanskrit, or the Pali is action, which is best understood as the law of cause and effect, the cause being the action and the effect referring to the result arising from the particular actions that we act. And there are the 2 kinds of karmas, which is positive and the negative, which take place through the 3 doors of us, that is the body, speech, and mind. And metaphorically, karma is considered as the seed which an individual plants in one's mind stream, and the quality of seed depends on the quality of the actions. Because a positive action or the virtuous action bears the fruit of happiness, and the negative action or the non-virtuous bear the harvest of suffering. So Buddha also asserts that karma is not destiny. So that one's life circumstances can be changed if one engages in the good deeds. So also it says that the karma can be purified by engaging more in the virtuous actions. The most notorious example in the Tibetan Buddhism is the Yogi Milarepa, the Tibetan point, where in the beginning of his life he have done so much of destruction, of killing so many people and destroying the villages. And then because he was so taken aback by that, he put so much of effort in the practice. And then he learned through his gurus and then practiced, and then he managed to get achievement, enlightenment within the one lifetime. So to be mindfulness in terms of the defect of samsara, defect of samsara, the Buddha taught that there are 31 planes of existence, which can actually is summarized into the 6 realms, which is the God, demigod, human being, considered as the higher rebirth, and then the hungry ghost, animal, and hell being as the lower rebirth. So none of these realms of the existence is desirable place to be in, as there was immense suffering in each of the realms, but especially in the 3 realms, the 3 lower realms, it is more. So the suffering of the human is not so intense that than that of the 3 lowers. So therefore, the human being have a mixture of a pain and pleasure, and that is the reason why the Buddha asserted that this is the best realm to practice the Dharma. Nevertheless, the suffering experienced by a human being is also sufficient to generate the mind of renunciation, that is to turn our minds away from samsara. So also the 7th, His Holiness the 7th Dalai Lama, the Kelsang Gyatso, also in a song that incorporates the 4 mindfulness from the instruction in the view of the middle path, he has also emphasized us on being mindful of the 4 things, which is practiced very deeply in the Gelug tradition. So the 4 mindfulness that His Holiness the 7th Dalai Lama emphasized was remembering one's guru as the Buddha, remembering all sentient beings as one's mother, and remembering oneself as a deity and remembering the nature of emptiness. So in this, the remembering the Guru as the Buddha, in that from the very beginning when we start the prayers and all, when we take refuge, also we take refuge in the Guru first, and then comes the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So it is because of all the mindfulness that we are practicing in this. So to attain the Buddhahood, one need a single-pointed concentration and wisdom realizing emptiness. So to achieve this one single-pointed concentration and the wisdom realizing emptiness, we have to generate the bodhicitta, a mind to liberate all sentient beings. And for that, we need a renunciation to turn away our mind of samsara. Yeah, so it leads from one to another. So once we are renounced, then we practice the bodhicitta, and through that, we practice on the mindfulness of all these different steps, and then we gain the one-pointed concentration, and we achieve the wisdom realizing emptiness. But in the Tibetan tradition, other than the four mindfulness and all, we also opt for the tantric practices so that we get the achievement at the fastest as possible. So, okay. So in conclusion to this, I would say that between the basic yana or the Theravada and the Mahayana, in terms of the approach to this meditation, which is the mindfulness, we have a three-fold distinction, very major distinctions of three. So in the basic yana, the focus is on our body, feeling, and so forth. While in the Mahayana, the focus is also on the bodies, feelings, and so forth, but for the sake of others. For the sake of others. And then again, in the basic yana, the focus is on the impurity aspects and so on, while in the Mahayana, the meditator concentrates on emptiness. Finally, with regard to the purpose of this meditation, in the basic yana, the practice is performed with the view of liberation, which is attaining the arahantship from the impure bodies and so on. While in the Mahayana, this meditation is performed also through the body, feelings, and also forth of the others in order to attain the complete enlightenment. So therefore, according to the Vajrayana, one meditates on being space-like beyond all conceptual construct during the meditation session, and one considers them as illusory and dream-like in the post-meditation period. So in conclusion, the Khenpo Namdrul also says, when the Shravakas practice the application of mindfulness of the body, they meditate on the mind, they meditate on their body in the form of a skeleton and concentrate on its impermanence, impurity, and suffering nature. By contrast, the Bodhisattva meditates on their own bodies and the bodies of others, focusing on the insubstantiality, their emptiness, and their selfless. So again, as a final dedication or the conclusion, I would like to read a word from Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, a Zen master, in his book called No Mud, No Lotus, The Art of Transforming Suffering. The Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh says, when I was a young monk, I wondered why the Buddha kept practicing mindfulness and meditation even after he had already become a Buddha. Now I find the answer is plain enough to see. Happiness is impermanent, like everything else. In order for happiness to be extended and renewed, you have to learn how to feed your happiness. Nothing can survive without food, including happiness. Your happiness can die if you don't know how to nourish it. If you cut a flower, but you don't put it in some water, the flower will wilt in a few hours. Even if happiness is already manifesting, we have to continue to nourish it. This is sometimes called condition, and it is very important. We can condition our bodies and minds to happiness with the 5 practices of letting go, inviting positive seeds, mindfulness, concentration, and insight. So we have to nourish our practice or the meditation as well through the practice of mindfulness of everything we do. So with this, I thank everyone for your attentive listening.
Thank you, Most Venerable Dr. Tenzin Dadon. I listened very carefully and very attentively. It is very privileged for us, a precious time to hear the teaching of the Dharma from Most Venerable. She mentioned in her presentations the historical background of how is the development of the lineage of the Buddhism and the school of thoughts within the core of the Buddhism spreads all over the world. And then he follows by explaining the mindfulness development and how is it related with the mind concentration and wisdom, which is very interesting and very important for us today. Most venerable brothers and sisters in this platform Zoom, we have 121 participants attending this event, and it is also live streamed in the YouTube, so much more viewers outside this platform. So we collect a lot of questions, but because of the limitation of the time, so we only choose three of them. First one, most venerable, comes from so I need to scroll it back. Indra, Pak Indra, how to learn to keep focus effectively, especially for people who has multitasking personality. Most venerable, time's yours. How to focus, stay focused.
Okay, so in terms of the
go ahead, venerable.
mindful, in terms of the, can you hear me?
Yes, very clear. Go ahead.
Okay.
You are audible.
So in terms of the being, thank you. In terms of being mindfulness, we always say that we focus on the breath, or we focus on the breath, breathing, because whenever something arises, we immediately come back to our breath, breathing in and be aware that we're breathing in, and breathing out, we are aware that we are breathing out. And then some, they cannot do it on the breath, they also do it on the rising and falling of the abdomen. But in the Tibetan Buddhism, mostly we practice on the recitations of the mantras, invocations of the prayers and all. So as because even if you are doing the multitasking, like for example, if we are doing the work and all these things on the computer, we can recite the mantras. So that is how we usually train ourselves. But in the other traditions, I'm not very sure. But in Tibetan traditions, usually we do a lot of like recitations or the physical, mental, and the speech also, the body, speech, and mind actions together. Like for example, when we talk about the preliminary practice, which we talked about the outer preliminary, which is the precious human rebirth, death and impermanence, karma, cause and effect, and the defect of samsara. But after that is like we are more aware of that, then we proceed it to the next procedure, to the next stage, which we actually engage in the body, speech, and mind actions, which actually is like a multitasking together at the same time. For example, the first among the inner preliminary is, in all 4 traditions, we do the prostrations. So in terms of doing the prostrations, when we do the prostrations through the body, through the speech, we recite the prayer. So usually we recite the prayer of refuge. We go for refuge to the Buddha, we go for refuge to the Dharma, we go for refuge to the Sangha, like that. And then as we recite, we do the prostrations. And through the mental, through the mind, we visualize the Guru in front of us, or sometimes depending on how familiar you are with the practice. If you're just beginner, then you just visualize in the front. You keep an image of the Guru or something, and then you visualize through that. which we actually call it as a refuge tree or something, which we have all the lineage gurus. But in the beginning, very, very beginning, if you're not familiar, then we just take the gurus or the Buddha statue or the picture in front, and then we try to visualize that as well together. So that is how we do. So in terms of if we are not engaging in this type of things, but you're talking about the multitasking in other work and all you're involved, maybe you can try in the terms of reciting the prayers or the mantras as we do, because as we also, like when we travel here and there also, then we always have a mala in the hand to do the recitation. So this mala that we are carrying, which is actually the mala means the garland, is also a reminder. These are all actually the reminder, the recitation of the mantras, the recitation of the prayers, and then also using the mala is also a means. It's a different way for us to be mindful of, because if we have a mala, then constantly we're reminded that we have this, so that we will recite the mantra and keep the track of the number. But immediately, if mala is not in our hand, sometimes we forget. So these are some of the things that will keep you reminded. So choose something that it keeps reminding, and you practice one thing at a time. And then eventually, when you get used to, then I think you will be able to get over to be mindful of anything, even when you're doing the multitasking. I hope I did answer your questions.
This is very enlightening. So a while ago, Venerable mentioned the term mala. Mala has similar meaning with tasbih in Indonesian.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for reminding us for that.
Thank you.
Most Venerable, the term concentration is very popular, not only among Buddhist people like us, most of us, but also to our brother and sister who also has different belief, like our Muslim friends, Hindus friends, maybe Christian friends. The concentration is really important, not only for us as a Buddhist, but for the whole people. Do you have anything to say about the term concentration? Of course, they have different faith with Buddhism. They don't know mala meditation or something, but how to develop concentration for general, Venerable. Can you say a bit more about it?
Yes, please. Yeah, as earlier in the talk also, I have mentioned that it is not only important to us as a Buddhist monk or a nun, but also it is important for the Dharma practitioners as well as the lay people. So in terms of when we are talking about the lay people or even the practitioners also, the practitioners also are in the different faith. You practice in the different faith, like not only in Buddhism. And then also the why the constantly also in the earlier that I have mentioned, the word, when we talk about the mindfulness, it always arises thinking that it is always associated with the Buddhism and the meditation in the Buddhist tradition. Actually, it is not. Actually, it is not. It is actually mindfulness, the concentration, whatever the word used in the different faiths and different schools. Actually, it is not a part of Buddhism. It is used in every other schools. I mean, every other faith, even in the Christianity, in the Hinduism, in the Muslim, especially in the. I'm familiar with the Hinduism and all because I did all my studies in India. So in India also, the people do the meditations and all these things, the concentrations. So which in the Hinduism also they do quite similar to the Buddhism in terms of recitation of the mantras. They invoke the name of the God and all these things like Ram, or Hare Krishna and all these things in a similar way.
Okay.
Like how we do. So the concentration, actually the word itself is not a Buddhist term also. So it is translated as the thing. How to say now? Because even if in the secular also, like when we are in the secular field, when we are studying and all this also, without using the concentration in the terms of the Buddhism also, we still have to have the concentration to do our work, to study and all, isn't it? So not necessarily it is a term of the Buddhism or inclined to the meditation. So I'm not very sure if I am coming to the point or not.
Yeah, I can understand. Now we have another good questions I picking up from the chat box.
Okay.
A while ago, you mentioned about the different focus of the trainings between Mahayana, Vajrayana, and Hinayana. That you mentioned the focus on the bodies, the focus on the body of others, and the focus on emptiness and the impurity. So, what is the difference and the similarities among three schools of thoughts in Buddhism about the mind? Is there any similarities or differences?
In terms of the mind, I think all the three traditions take the mind as the pure of its own nature. Only thing is that it is covered with the defilements and all. As the sun on its own is very clear, very bright, but it is covered by the clouds on the certain days, and then the certain weather. We can't see the sun. But it doesn't mean that the sun is not bright and clear and this thing, isn't it? In a similar way, at night also the moon is not that it is not clear. It is always very clear, even though it is not a full moon. When it was starting also, the moon is always clear, we can see. But when it is obstructed by the cloud and all, we don't see. Even if it is on the full moon day, we don't see the moon because it's obstructed by the thing. So in all the three traditions, still the mind actually is considered as the same, which means that it is of a pure nature. And then it has the nature where you can be seen it when you do the constant mindfulness practice, and then when you go deeper into the meditation, and that's how you develop in the stages, like step by step. That is why you have to go step by step in the stages of the path in terms of the practice to really see. So even if the water also, the ocean water is clear, but if you mix it with the sand and all, we don't see the clarity of the water. It's exactly the same as our mind. And even if it's also the example of the mirror. The mirror on its own is clear, but sometimes it is obstructed by the dust or the haze or the vapor. When we use the hot water and all, then it is obstructed by this, that we can't see our faces or image in it clearly. So the mind is clear in all three traditions. So only the stages or the practices that they do, I think, is in a different method. Where in the Theravada is because we practice for oneself to be enlightened, which is aiming for the Arahant. But in the Mahayana and the Vajrayana, we aim for the sake of all sentient beings. So other than that, I think it is same in terms of the mind. Yeah.
Okay. So if I may say, the essence of the understanding of the mind is the same, but the method and the development of the stages is clearly different from one school thoughts to another. Yeah. Venerable.
They use the different method. Yeah.
All right. The next questions comes from Pak Arif. Pak Arif asks, how mindfulness significant for those who have mentally disorder? Is it arising immediately, effect, or stages by stages for the healing process? The mindfulness, is it important or have something beneficial with those who have mental disorders, Venerable? What do you think?
Yes, definitely. The mindfulness is very, very helpful for anybody, not only for the mental health people and also for the healthy people. So because mindfulness actually can boost our focus and also in the level of awareness. So yes, in terms of the people who are like normal and who are abnormal, the speed of the practice, the speed of their achievement will be differences, because one is abnormal, so it will take a longer period to develop the mindfulness in them, whereas the normal people can do it faster. But it will definitely is very helpful, beneficial, because it boosts our level of focus and the level of awareness. And also the mindfulness, if you keep on practicing, it will help to calm the body, it will decrease your stress, it will reduce anxiety, integrate emotions, and also it will relieve the chronic pains. And it also helps to build up our clearer thinking and improve the memory. And it also helps in our spiritual growth. And also it increases the resistance to the stress and all. So definitely it is beneficial for both the normal and the abnormal people. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The next question comes from Miss Lalita.
Mhm.
Is there any living Buddha nowadays according to Tibetan or Tantric Buddhism? What if someone proclaims himself he is a living Buddha and make a Buddhist clan and follows by many practitioners around the world? What is your opinion about it? Does it mean his action against the code of the ethics of the Buddhism? Or
Mhm.
yeah, this is very phenomenal.
Yeah, it is
What
a
do you
very
think?
good question. Yeah. So actually, we believe that Buddha is everywhere because, as we said, that Buddha is not somewhere outside and all. It is within us. In every single sentient beings, we have a Buddha nature. So which means we are also a Buddha. Only thing is that we have not shown out because of our defilement. As earlier said, the example of the sun, moon, and the clear water and all, which is obstructed by the mud or obstructed by the clouds. So we have not shown our purity because of the obstruction of our defilements, because we have been doing a lot of negative actions from the beginning last time, more than the good actions or the virtuous actions or the positive actions that we have been doing. So in that way, that we can't say that we are Buddha, but we have a Buddha nature. So we can say that the Buddhas are everywhere around us. But if somebody claims to be a Buddha, then you have to actually examine, because nowadays and everybody can claim anything under the sun and the moon. So you have to examine, and then if it does, you don't have to worry whether that person who claims himself as the Buddha is real Buddha or not. You just observe and see their actions. If their actions of the body, speech, and mind synchronizes with the Buddha's body, speech, and mind actions, then just believe him as a Buddha. There's no harm, isn't it? But if all the actions that he is doing through his body, speech, and mind is opposite to the Buddha's teachings, Buddha's actions, and whatever the Buddha has taught, which we have learned and we are quite familiar. And if you don't know, you could just approach to the proper people who are very aware of all these things, and then you find out. You have to examine. So, but if their actions and all are good, and then it is really benefiting all the others, claiming that the person is the Buddha, and then giving the teachings, and it is really is going according to the Buddha's teaching, then might as well accept there's no harm in it. That's what I feel.
Yes, Venerable. I would like to jump over a little bit about the way how Tibetan Buddhism afford in the terms of situation in the pandemic COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
So we know the rest of the world, including us in Indonesia now, is getting worse, suffer from the pandemic. We are isolated, so boring, and so on and so forth. Many mental problems appears to be a phenomenon for the entire human being. So what do you say? What do you suggest for all of us right here from Tibetan practice perspective to deal with the current situation of the pandemic? Venerable.
Yeah. In terms of this pandemic, yes, everybody is suffering. It doesn't matter whether it is a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner or it is the other practitioners. Everybody is going through, because the virus actually doesn't differentiate who is who and who is high, who is low. They treat everybody as equally. So, but in terms of the Buddhists, in terms of the Vajrayana Buddhists, I'm talking. So everybody actually is reflecting on this. The very fact that they're able to cope with all this is because from the very beginning we are engaged in the preliminary practice, which we have discussed earlier. The outer preliminary practice, the Ngondo 4. And then even if you go for the higher practices and all, you have to practice these. And even if you're just the basic also, you still have to practice from there. And once you have practiced in the beginner as a preliminary, once you go to the highest HYT, it is called highest yoga tantra and all. It is not that this one is kept aside. It is continuously practiced from the very beginning, the onset of you being a Buddhist until the day that you leave. Also, you keep on practicing this. So when we practice about being mindful of the precious human rebirth, the impermanence, the karma cause and effect, this is how these people keep going, because they always reflect. Whenever these things comes, they take it as positively, that it comes and then it will eventually go. Because there is a saying that whatever we have built, it will collapse one day. And whatever we have gathered, it will separate one day. So isn't it, we can see very clearly that we're all friends in the school and all, we are gathered together, but one day we all go separate on our own way. And then people who climb higher, like who are already in the position of a very high, like president, prime ministers and ministers and all, when their term finished, then they go back to the normal ordinary people and all. So when you rise up, you also will fall down. So they constantly practice on this. So that is how the mindfulness actually helps in this type of the situation as well, because they constantly practice on this mindfulness on precious human rebirth, how difficult it is to gain. And then we cannot now misuse our precious human rebirth. So in that way, they think that we still have to use properly, so they don't go committing suicide and all to end our life, because that is not the end of the suffering. Because if you end the suffering now by just giving up your physical, but the consciousness is the one that is actually going through, it will go and then it will take another form of a body to come back to this samsara, either in the form of animal or a hungry ghost, preta, god, or demigod, or human. So it will come back in this form. So it is not the end. So in that way, they diligently practice and they just constantly remind. So which means it's mindfulness, constantly remind that these are the impermanent. So when it comes, it will also one day, it will also go away. So it's just a matter of time, and that's how they console themselves. So I hope everybody can use that method as well.
Thank you, Most Venerable. If I can say, now it is time for us to realize the impermanence, the core teaching of the Buddha.
Yes, impermanence.
All right. Participants, brothers and sisters, we are bare on time restriction, as we already arranged before. So we have so many questions and comments from YouTube and our chat box in our official WhatsApp and so on. But unfortunately, our time is up. So we will collect another questions, such as from Bu Yuriani and Pak Purnomo, directly to Brother Casey Liu as a coordinator, and that will pass again to Venerable, and Venerable will reply back later on. So in order to close this event, I would like to invite the respected rector of Sriwijaya State Buddhist College of Tangerang, Banten, Dr. Sapardi SAG M. Hum, as our boss in our institution, to say gratitude speech to the presence of the teaching from Venerable Dr. Tenzin Dadon from Vajrayana Buddhist Council, Malaysia, and the rest of the team from Pak Casey and Pak Pek and so on. Thank you. Time's yours, Pak Ketua, Pak Sapardi. You can say in English or Bahasa Indonesia. Brother Casey will transfer it later on.
Ya, oke, terima kasih. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Amitopo. Thank you very much, Most Venerable Dr. Tenzin Dadon, from Director of Education Vajrayana Buddhist Council Malaysia, who this afternoon has taken the time to give discussion related mindfulness in Buddhist tradition, its challenge for today education. Hopefully, what has been discussed can be an additional insight for all participants. I need to say that the Sriwijaya State Buddhist College of Tangerang, we hope that in the future it can be more advanced and developed. Of course, by building collaboration with various parties, hopefully, most venerable can always support. Currently, we still lack human resource, especially lectures in the field of Buddhism. Therefore, we hope that most venerable Tenzin Dadon can help and play a role in the development of Buddhist education in Sriwijaya Buddhist State College of Tangerang. As a thank you, we will present you a certificate of Master. Please, more venerable, please accept it. Thank you very much, most venerable. Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya Tasi Delek. Now we would like to pass e-certificate as our appreciation for her teachings and presence of our today guest lectures in special talk for Sriwijaya Academic Circle and Community. Pak Waluyo or Pak Marjo, would you please display the certificate for most venerable?
Thank you.
Pak Sapardi, please say in Bahasa.
Most venerable Tenzin Dadon from Malaysia, Namo Buddhaya.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
This certificate certifies that Tsunma Dr. Tenzin Dadon, Sonam Wangmo, has participated in special lecture as international seminar entitled Mindfulness in Buddhist Tradition, Its Challenge for Today's Education, as a guest speaker. Respected scholars and the Chief of Sriwijaya State Buddhist College of Tangerang, Banten, Dr. Sapardi. Because we have Brother Pek Che Han from Malaysia, Vajrayana Buddhist Malaysia, we would like to hear a kind words to say our academic fellows and Indonesian brothers and sisters who have been waiting for your speech from the beginning. Brother Pek, time's yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Edi. I think you say the right word, you know, and also rector, rector mentioned the right, you know, you use the right word. Collaboration, I think it's so rare, until Brother Casey introduced us. I didn't realize about your university that you have a Buddhist university in Indonesia, Sriwijaya, and
yes,
it's of course something that we really like to get to know each other better. You know, I think this kind of opportunity that has been arranged will certainly bring us closer. Then we get to know what you do, and then you get to know what we do, and then through this kind of collaboration, then we will get, we will hopefully our level of wisdom will all increase together.
Sadhu.
Thank you.
So hopefully after pandemic ends, we will invite Dr. Tenzin Dadon and Brother Casey to come to Indonesia.
Thank you so much.
Right. To end this event, I would like to ask everybody here now to open their camera, because we will have virtual photos and it will be spread all over the world. So would you please open your camera, Pak Waluyo? Time is yours to take the whole pictures of us to go around the world. Open your camera and give your best shot of your smiles. Bapak Ibu silakan membuka kameranya, karena ini SACC ini sangat spesial ya. Menurut kabar dari registran sudah ada 7 negara nih, yang 8 kalau tidak salah. 8 negara termasuk Malaysia dan Tibet, Singapura, dan Vietnam, serta Eropa ya. Jadi luar biasa. Silakan dibuka kameranya Pak Wal.
Ya, baik. Ada 5 slide ini, Sir.
Wow.
Yang pertama, tahan senyumannya ya.
Most Venerable, kapan datang ke Indonesia? Come from Indonesia. Kapan ke Indonesia?
Thank you, brother.
Kami tunggu ya di Sriwijaya.
Brother Peck and Casey has good Melayu, so they can translate to Penarabo.
Yalah, sikit-sikit faham.
Sikit-sikit ya.
Boleh.
Ya,
Bisa,
cukup
bisa.
Edi foto.
Kalau Malaysia pasti bisa lah. Kami
Bisa,
ke Malaysia
bisa.
juga dengan bahasa Melayu,
Betul,
pasti bisa.
betul, ya betul.
Terima
Yes.
kasih Pak Cik Peck dan Pak Cik Casey.
Pak
Terima kasih.
C, salam kenal Pak C.